Google helped create the technology that made ChatGPT possible, not in a vague, foundational-era kind of way. Researchers affiliated with Google Brain and Google Research co-authored the 2017 paper that introduced the transformer architecture, one of the core breakthroughs behind every major language model that followed, including the one that would put Google into emergency mode 5 years later. On November 30th, 2022, OpenAI launched ChatGPT as a public research preview. Within 5 days, it had reached 1 million users. Sam Altman confirmed that number himself. Within roughly 2 months, Reuters reported it had an estimated 100 million monthly active users, making it, at the time, the fastest-growing consumer application in history. Inside Google, that speed triggered something the company had not publicly prepared for. According to reporting attributed to the New York Times, Google management declared a code red. CEO Sundar Pichai reportedly upended work across numerous groups to respond to the threat ChatGPT posed to the core business. That business was search. And, for the first time in over 2 decades, search looked like it might not be the default. To understand what made that moment so strange, you have to go back to what Google actually had. Google was not behind in AI. That is not the story. By 2022, Google had Lambda, an advanced conversational AI system. It had Palm, a 540 billion parameter language model introduced in April of that year. It had DeepMind. It had Google Brain. It had teams that had spent years building the technical foundations of the modern AI era. The crisis was not invention. Google had invention. The crisis was deployment. Google Search had been the dominant gateway to information on the internet for more than 2 decades. It was also the engine of one of the most profitable advertising businesses in history. Moving too fast with a conversational AI system, one prone to hallucinations, factual errors, and unpredictable outputs, risked damaging the thing that everything else was built on. Every instinct the company had built its success around said, "Do not rush this." OpenAI had different instincts. ChatGPT launched as a research preview, not a finished product. The strategy was explicit. Get it into users' hands, learn from real-world behavior, and improve fast. The product did not need to be perfect. It needed to be usable. What Google had in depth, OpenAI put in everyone's hands first. Sundar Pichai was running a company that had helped invent the era it was now scrambling to respond to. He later reflected that seeing ChatGPT made him think the technology was going to diffuse earlier and faster than expected. He described the feeling as uncomfortably exciting. That combination, excitement and discomfort, captures the problem exactly. The technology was not a surprise to Google. The speed of public adoption was. According to reporting by the New York Times, Google reportedly asked co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin to help review AI strategy following the code red. They had both largely stepped back from day-to-day operations years earlier. Their presence in the room said something about how seriously the moment was being taken. On the other side of the race, Microsoft. Satya Nadella had been watching OpenAI carefully since Microsoft's first partnership investment years earlier. In January 2023, Microsoft announced the third phase of that relationship, a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar investment that multiple outlets reported at approximately $10 billion. The money came with a plan. Microsoft embedded OpenAI models into Bing and Edge, positioning them as an AI co-pilot for the web. It was the first credible challenge to Google's search dominance in years, and Nadella knew it. On February 6, 2023, Google announced Bard, its experimental conversational AI service powered by Lambda. The next day, Microsoft unveiled its new AI-powered Bing and Edge. Both companies were racing to be first on the board. February was when the platform war became public, and then Bard made a mistake. In a promotional video used to introduce Bard publicly, the AI was shown answering a question. What new discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope could someone tell a 9-year-old about? Bard's response included the claim that the James Webb Space Telescope took the very first pictures of a planet outside our solar system. That was wrong. The first images of an exoplanet had been captured by the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope back in 2004, nearly 2 decades earlier. This was not a live demo gone sideways. This was a promotional video, the kind of content that should have been fact-checked before it was published, the kind of mistake that, in any other context, might have been quietly corrected. But this was Google's public introduction of its AI future, and astronomers caught it almost immediately. On February 8, 2023, Reuters reported that Alphabet had lost approximately $100 billion in market value. Alphabet shares fell somewhere between 7 and 9% on the day. CNN reported roughly 7.7% at the close. Reuters noted intraday drops of up to 9%. Microsoft shares rose around 3% the same day. The entire AI race had just been compressed into a single afternoon on the stock market. Google moved quickly after the Bard launch. In April 2023, Google combined DeepMind and the Brain team from Google Research into a single unified organization, Google DeepMind. Demis Hassabis was named CEO. The reorganization was a signal, not just to the market, but internally, that the company's AI efforts could no longer operate in separate tracks. Bard itself was eventually folded into the Gemini brand as Google rebuilt its AI product identity around a more unified consumer and enterprise platform. Meanwhile, the behavior shift that had triggered the code red kept spreading. ChatGPT had not replaced Google Search, but it had done something more subtle and more lasting. It had made people comfortable asking a machine a question and expecting an answer directly, without clicking through a list of links. The search interface was no longer the only obvious choice. It is also worth noting, Microsoft's early speed advantage came with its own complications. Early Bing chat coverage showed the risks of deploying powerful conversational systems before trust and safety expectations were fully settled. The lesson was not that one side got it perfectly right. The lesson was that the entire industry entered deployment under pressure, and that moving fast exposed problems neither side had fully solved. By 2025, Microsoft and OpenAI had restructured their relationship as OpenAI moved into a public benefit corporation. Reuters reported that Microsoft held approximately a 27% stake in OpenAI Group after investing $13.8 billion, a position valued at roughly $135 billion at the time of the restructuring. In March 2026, OpenAI closed a $122 billion funding round at an $852 billion post-money valuation. What began as Google's emergency response to a chatbot had become a multi-year struggle over search, cloud infrastructure, AI assistants, developer platforms, and something harder to quantify: who gets to be the default interface for human knowledge? The story of Google's code red is often framed as a cautionary tale about complacency. That framing misses something important. Google was not complacent, it was careful. Careful in ways that were entirely rational, and then those rational reasons became the thing that slowed it down. Dominance creates hesitation. When you own the category, every move toward a new model is also a move against your existing business. When you have built 2 decades of user trust, a public AI mistake does not cost you a news cycle, it costs you that trust. Google had real reasons to be cautious. Those reasons did not protect it. OpenAI packaged imperfection as a feature. A research preview is allowed to be wrong. A flagship product is not. By launching iteratively, by framing the chat interface as something in progress, OpenAI bought itself the runway to learn at the scale that mattered. The company that invents a foundational technology does not always define the market around it. History is full of that irony. What makes the Google case different is the precision of it. The foundational paper was theirs, the deployment window was available, and the product that changed user behavior launched from somewhere else. Sundar Pichai called it uncomfortably exciting. That description has aged in a way he probably did not intend. The discomfort turned out to be accurate. The excitement turned out to belong to someone else. If you found this story fascinating, like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell. Thanks for watching AMPVEX. We'll see you in the next one.